There is a specific problem E46 M3 owners have had for over a decade. Not the subframe, not the rod bearings, something harder to fix. They cannot sell the car. People get offered real money, money that makes complete financial sense to accept, and they say no. The BMW community has a name for this. They call it the forever car. BMW has built faster M3s since, heavier ones, more powerful ones. Not one of them has created this exact problem in its owners. This is the story of the BMW that was built too perfectly to let go of, and why 25 years later, the company still has not built another one like it. In 1999, BMW's whole identity as the ultimate driving machine rested on one car. Not the 5 Series, not the 7 Series, the 3 Series, and specifically the M version of it. The previous generation, the E46 M3, had let American buyers down. Europe got the full-strength engine, the United States got a detuned version, and enthusiasts here noticed immediately. So when BMW started designing the next M3 in 1993, they were not just building a car, they were rebuilding trust with an entire market. Design work began 5 full years before the standard car reached production, and 8 years before this M3 would go on sale in America. The target was 85,000 units, the most ambitious M-car production run BMW had ever attempted. Not because they wanted volume, because they believed, going in, that they were building something people would want for decades, not years. Here is the first decision that made this car what it became. BMW could have turbocharged it. By 1999, force induction was not experimental technology anymore. It worked, it was proven, and it would have been the easier path to more horsepower. They said no. Instead, engineers built 6 individual throttle bodies into the engine, 1 per cylinder, each one opening independently, feeding exactly the air that specific cylinder wanted at that exact moment. No shared intake, no waiting for boost to build. 333 horsepower from a naturally aspirated 3.2-liter inline-6, revving to 8,000 RPM. In 2026, that number reads almost modest. What it actually felt like to reach that red line never has. The engine, called the S54, went on to win 8 separate Engine of the Year awards, taking its category 6 years in a row, from 2001 through 2006. Nobody else building a straight 6 came close during that stretch. But the engine was only half the argument. The chassis underneath it was 70% more rigid than the M3 it replaced. Not improved, rebuilt. BMW held 50-50 weight distribution, front to rear, as a non-negotiable requirement through every engineering compromise the development process demanded. And then the detail, BMW would eventually walk away from across their entire lineup. Hydraulic power steering. Heavier to build, more expensive to tune, worse for fuel economy than the electric steering racks already on the horizon. They used it anyway, because hydraulic steering talks back. When you are approaching the limit of grip in a corner, the wheel gets heavier in your hands. And that weight is the car telling you exactly where you are, in real time, with nothing translating the message first. Every one of these decisions points the same direction. BMW chose character over convenience. They had the ability to build something easier. They built something you would remember instead. Quick thing, if a car company turning down the easier, cheaper option on purpose is new information to you, that is worth a like. It tells the algorithm more people need to hear this part of the story. So here's where we are. BMW built an engine on purpose to be harder to master, and a chassis on purpose to be more expensive to build right. Knowing why that is smart and actually feeling why it is smart are 2 very different arguments. The next one is not told with numbers at all. There is something the E46 M3 does that most modern performance cars have quietly stopped doing. It tells you things. The steering gets heavier as you approach the limit, and you know, without checking a screen or a driving mode readout, exactly how much grip you have left. The throttle has no boost threshold to wait through. You ask for power and the engine gives it to you immediately, in a straight line from idle all the way to redline. And then there is the sound. Past 6,000 RPM, those 6 individual throttle bodies start to scream, a mechanical wail that builds and builds until you are at 8,000 and out of rev counter. This is not processed, it is not played through a speaker to simulate what the engine should sound like. It is what 6 throttle bodies actually sound like through pure physics, with nothing standing between the engine and your ears. Here is the comparison that actually matters. The M3 that followed this one added a V8 and 300 extra pounds. The one after that added a turbocharger and lost the linear throttle response entirely. The current M3 is 445 pounds heavier than this one, carrying enough extra horsepower to make up for the difference the scale created. Every generation, BMW has added something to compensate for what the numbers alone could no longer provide. You only compensate for something when you already know it is gone. In 2005, a video game introduced more people to this car than any advertisement BMW ever ran. Need for Speed Most Wanted built its entire story around the M3 GTR, the villain's car, the one your character loses in the opening minutes and spends the whole game trying to win back. For an entire generation of teenagers who had never been near a BMW dealership, this was their first real encounter with the idea that a car could mean something. That generation grew up, got jobs, started saving, and when they finally bought the real thing, something happened that nobody at BMW could have planned for. They would not sell it. The BMW community has a name for this exact behavior: the forever car. Not an official term, just what people call a car whose owner keeps turning down serious money because selling it would feel like losing something they cannot replace. The market backs this up. A clean manual coupe that traded for a little over $7,000 at its lowest point now averages around $35,000. One exceptional CSL sold for over $325,000 in 2022. When a 25-year-old car gets more expensive every single year, the market is not being sentimental. It is telling you the truth about something that was built too well to depreciate the normal way. Like, if you know someone with a forever car of their own, hit like before you keep going. They would probably agree with everything you just heard. In 2015, BMW launched the M2. Nobody at BMW said in any press release that it existed to recapture something they had built and then lost. They did not have to. Every reviewer who drove it said some version of the same thing. This is the closest we have gotten back. The M2 CS. The M2 CSL. BMW keeps developing this car, keeps trying to close a gap they opened themselves 25 years ago. You do not keep trying to recreate something you have already beaten. This is the last naturally aspirated inline-six M3 BMW will ever build. The most celebrated M car / among the people who actually know the difference. And, by BMW's own quiet, repeated behavior, the benchmark their own M division still has not matched. The greatest car is not always the most powerful one. It is the one where every decision, the engine, the chassis, the steering, the sound, pointed in exactly the same direction, on purpose. BMW built that car once. 25 years later, the argument for anything else is still open, because BMW itself has never closed it. So here is what actually happened. BMW set out in 1993 to fix a mistake. What they built instead turned down easier technology on purpose, dominated a race series so completely it got the rules changed, became a childhood obsession for an entire generation through a video game, and turned into the one BMW owners statistically refused to sell. 25 years later, BMW is still building cars that are chasing it. If you made it this far, drop one thing in the comments. Have you driven one? Or is there a modern BMW you genuinely think has beaten it? I want to see the actual argument, not just the agreement. And if you want to know whether BMW's own attempt, the M2 CS, actually closes that gap or just gets close, that is exactly what we are covering next. Subscribe. Hit subscribe so you do not miss it.